than 70 years, one of the most shocking experiments of Nazi Germany has been cloaked in secrecy, suspicion, and shame. It was the second stage of the final solution, an horrific plan masterminded by SS Reichsfuhrer Heinrich Himmler to create an entire generation of racially pure Aryan children. Now, with unprecedented access to long secret documents and to the victims of this cruel and bizarre scheme, this film uncovers the extraordinary story of the babies who were born to be the very future of the Nazi master race. In a small town in the very heartland of modern Germany, an extraordinary and little-known archive holds the terrible evidence of a nation's descent into madness. There are 70 million individual files housed here. Each contains documents created by the Nazi machine. Each tells the story of a single victim of Hitler's 10-year reign of terror.
We have all the documents that concern the use of people in concentration camps as slave laborers, as well as the killing, the Holocaust of Sinti and Roma and Jews.
But hidden deep within these millions of files are little-known documents revealing the story of one of the Nazis' most obscene experiments. A scheme involving secretive birthing homes, kidnapping thousands of children, and the murder of tiny babies. It was called the Lebensborn program, and its extraordinary ambition was the creation of a new, racially pure generation to rule Hitler's 1,000-year Reich.
The aim was, schenkt dem Führer ein Kind. Give a child to the Führer.
For all her life, Greta Martin has lived with the knowledge that she was chosen by blood to be the future of Nazi Germany.
Blood was all important. If you didn't, if you were not pure blood Aryan, you wouldn't interest anybody. For the future of the Reich, only the best were good enough.
When the Nazis strong-armed their way to power in the 1930s, Germany's birth rate was falling and its population shrinking. Hitler built up a vast army to wage total war, but he and his most trusted henchman, Heinrich Himmler, knew that many of these crack troops would not survive. And so they set out to create a new generation, to be born in their own brutal image.
Meine deutsche Jugend, und wir möchten nun, dass ihr, deutsche Jungs und deutsche Mädchen, in euch all das aufnehmt, was wir dereinst uns von Deutschland hoffen.
Heinrich Himmler, Reichsfuhrer of the SS and the second most feared man in Germany, was in charge of securing the future Nazi state. In 1935, he founded a new and secretive organization. It was called Lebensborn.
Lebensborn means spring of life, and that meant in reality they want to strengthen, they want to enlarge the so-called Aryan race and the Aryan people.
Dr. Dorothy Schmitz-Körster has spent 20 years investigating the extraordinary story of Himmler's scheme.
I'm so deeply touched by the crimes they did, from the smallest to the biggest one. I'm deeply touched about that, and that I think that's the reason why I'm working on the subjects year after year and continue and continue.
Under Lebensborn's banner, Himmler set up a network of maternity homes where racially pure unmarried women could give birth in secret to genetically valuable Aryan babies. He set out his vision for this extraordinary plan in this rare audio recording.
Ich bin ja zu den Dingen auch durch Erfahrung gekommen. Durch Verstand, weil die Natur es eben nun mal so eingerichtet hat, dass auch das wertvollste Erbgut in dem Augenblick für die Nation verloren ist, wo es nicht weitergegeben ist.
In October 1939, 2 weeks after the start of the Second World War, Himmler issued a secret order to the SS, an instruction to fulfill their sacred duty to the Reich by fathering its next generation.
The order explains that everyone who is part of the SS or police should have as many children as possible with other women, whether they are married or not.
SS men and mothers of the children Germany hopes for. Show that you believe in the Führer and that you want to give birth to children.
It's an order for free sex. So have sex with the women who are left alone at home. Their men are fighting for Germany, and you should make sure they have more children. So that will be more Aryan and German blood.
In 1940s Germany, illegitimacy was a terrible stigma. Himmler's encouragement of it was shocking. Worse still, his scheme welcomed unmarried pregnant women and gave them the chance to leave their babies in Lebensborn's care.
My mother was really the model user of Lebensborn. When she found herself pregnant, she was told by her family that she was not to bring an illegitimate child home. So Lebensborn offered itself as an opportunity where she could have me and even leave me with the institution without anybody being the wiser.
But to be accepted into the Lebensborn program, Greta's mother had to provide an Ahnentafel, documentary proof of her family's racial purity going back 2 generations.
This is my father, and then here's his father, and then his father's father and his father's mother. And again, on mother's side, grandfather and grandmother. They selected the healthy, worth bringing up.
But this was just the beginning. As the Nazi military machine overran countries across Europe, Himmler's obsession with pure Aryan blood and the creation of a master race would lead to some of the most shocking and still largely secret crimes of World War II. As World War II began, Reichsfuhrer Heinrich Himmler had put in place plans to rid Europe of what he deemed racially impure people by expelling, then killing Jews. The Holocaust. But there was a second part of the scheme. A network of special homes for unmarried women to give birth in secret to a new Aryan generation. If they could prove they came from pure blood.
They were only the best. And Lebensborn always told they selected from all the candidates, they selected only 40%.
Himmler set up 25 Lebensborn homes across Germany and in the countries its army occupied. They were often furnished with property stolen from Jewish families, sent to the death camps.
Conditions were quite state of the art. Good medical care, in those days the best. Any Lebensborn child would be valuable because you had all those procedures to leave no doubt that you were Aryan, healthy, strong, Herrenrasse. So valuable we were.
Lebensborn homes were under the direct control of the SS. Their senior staff were high-ranking SS officers. But why would Himmler choose an organization infamous for its cruelty to run the Lebensborn project? One answer may lie in a 17th century fortress deep in the Germanic heartland. Wewelsburg Castle was rebuilt to Himmler's personal design. It was to be the spiritual home of the sacred brotherhood he believed to carry the blood and soul of the Aryan race. The SS.
For Himmler, the SS should be an order like the Knights Order of the medieval times. Political order, of course, which should be the essence of National Socialism.
Ein Grundsatz muss für den SS-Mann absolut da sein. Ehrlich, anständig, treu, kameradschaftlich haben wir zu unserem eigenen Blut zu sein. Zu sonst niemand anderen.
Obsessed by blood and mystical rituals, the SS Reichsfuhrer demanded that a special chamber be constructed deep underneath the castle.
This room is called the crypt, or in one record it is described as a room for funeral rituals, rituals for the death generals of the SS. It's interesting that this room is called a death ceremonies room because death stands in the right center of the ideology of the SS.
It was Himmler's belief in the mystical Aryan purity of this death-worshipping clan which led him to entrust it with his project for new life and the raising of the master race.
Mein Name ist Heinz Michael Ernst Sturm. Ich bin im 17. Dezember 1941 geboren. Die Klärung, dass ich ein Lebensborn-Kind bin, hat sich eigentlich erst in den letzten 4 Jahren zugetragen.
Michael Sturm's mother was unmarried and pregnant from an affair with a senior Wehrmacht officer. As part of a family of fanatical Nazis, she was an ideal candidate for Lebensborn.
Der Mann der Schwester meiner Mutter hier über die Berliner Seen mit einem großen Motorboot mit Hakenkreuzfahne dran gefahren ist und dass der also an der Einordnung und an der Requirierung jüdischen Eigentums beteiligt gewesen ist.
Michael was born in the Lebensborn home at Bad Polzin. After giving birth, his mother handed him over to the care of the SS. It would be 4 years before he saw her again.
Das ist schon ein Zustand, den kann man nicht beschreiben. Der ist unglaublich, weil wenn man sich etwas mit der Geschichte beschäftigt hat, es einfach widerstrebend ist, daran zu glauben, dass das so passiert worden ist.
Inside the Lebensborn home, babies like Michael underwent a bizarre SS christening ritual in front of an altar decorated with Nazi flags.
Die Mütter sind mit den Kindern zu der Namensgebung aufgefordert worden und die Bedeutung war ganz einfach, der kirchlichen Taufe entgegenzuwirken.
We believe in the race, carrier of the blood, and in the Führer, chosen for us by God.
Beneath the bust of Hitler, Michael's mother would have passed him to an SS godfather. An SS dagger was placed on top of him to symbolize his entry into its brotherhood.
We take you into our community as a limb of our body. You shall grow up in our protection and bring honor to your name, pride to your brotherhood, and inextinguishable glory to your race.
This Namensgebung ritual anointed Lebensborn babies like Michael Sturm as the future leaders of the master race.
Es war der Hintergrund, eine Rasse züchten, die in der Lage war, später den sogenannten nationalsozialistischen Adel darzustellen.
As the Nazi armies rampaged across Europe, SS Reichsfuhrer Heinrich Himmler was in charge of organizing the slaughter of millions. Yet he made time to control even the most mundane aspects of the Lebensborn program, personally.
For example, he made propositions what the mothers should eat and drink. And he visited the homes and looked to the mothers. And sometimes Himmler himself was godfather from some children.
Himmler also demanded that mothers were given political indoctrination classes, and he was sent individual reports analyzing their commitment to Nazi ideals.
Secret, for the eyes of the Reichsfuhrer SS only. Report on child's mother. Ideological outlook, convinced National Socialist.
This document was sent to Himmler, and he looked over this document and decided this woman is worthful enough to give birth to another Lebensborn child.
As the Lebensborn babies grew into toddlers, Himmler's organization embarked on the next stage of their Nazi upbringing. They were handed over to temporary foster parents.
You could foster children for the duration of the war, and after that it was planned for the children to go back under the shield of proper Nazi education after victorious end of the war.
Greta Martin was given to foster parents in July 1941. After 2 years, they sought to formally adopt her, but they first had to seek the personal approval of Hitler and Himmler.
This is the letter my adoptive father wrote to the, well, had to be addressed to the Führer, and it's an appeal to be allowed to adopt me legally. And he addresses the letter with "Mein Führer!" exclamation mark. And here's the reply from the Führer's office, and that's the official seal of the Führer's Kanzlei. And this is the letter from Lebensborn. I'm happy to inform you today that the Reichsfuhrer SS has agreed to you adopting the child Anne-Margret Witte. Here's the name. And the Reichsfuhrer SS was Himmler. And that was his office. And his baby was Lebensborn.
Michael Sturm stayed in the Lebensborn home at Bad Polzin for 4 years. In 1945, his mother, still an unrepentant Nazi, was trusted to take him home and raise him as a good National Socialist. But she refused to talk to Michael about the circumstances of his birth.
Ich bin ohne Vater aufgewachsen, was mir eigentlich sehr wehgetan hat. Und meine Mutter hat mir über meinen Vater von selbst nichts erzählt. Ich habe mehrmals nachgefragt.
Eventually, Else Sturm relented. She told Michael that his father had been a hero, a good and honourable army officer who had been killed during a failed assassination of Adolf Hitler.
Und als ich dann hörte, dass mein Vater also auf diese Weise zu Tode gekommen sei, habe ich gesagt, in Wirklichkeit hat er sich dann doch noch diesem Regime entgegengestellt. Ich habe das geglaubt und war sogar auch ein wenig stolz darauf.
It was not until long after his mother's death and a career as a soldier in the East German Army that Michael discovered the painful truth.
Mein Sohn hat dann im Internet recherchiert nach dem Namen mit dem Dienstgrad meines Vaters, den ich wusste, denn er war Oberst, und nach Oberst Heinz Sturm gesucht. Und einen Oberst Heinz Sturm gab es im Verzeichnis der Generalstabsoffiziere nicht.
But Michael remembered that his mother had received mysterious letters from a man called Langmann. It led him to discover that this man was his father and was no war hero. Oberst Hans Langmann was chief of the General Staff of the Fourth Army. In 1941, he was in charge of the invasion of Crete and involved in a terrible war crime.
Dieser Herr General Kreipe ist auf Kreta entführt worden durch britische Soldaten und dafür ist dann diese Vergeltungsaktion auf Kreta durchgeführt worden, indem ein ganzes Dorf dort zerschossen wurde und die männlichen Bewohner dort alle erschossen worden sind.
After the war, several Wehrmacht officers were hanged for this atrocity. But Michael's father escaped justice by adopting the identity of a humble private.
Hat mich das belastet. Zumal es ja so ist, da ich ja eben auch Offizier gewesen bin und militärisch ausgebildet bin. Wühlt mich jedes Mal wieder auf. Und bedrückend ist es für mich insofern um das Wissen, dass er dann eine solche Funktion als oberster nationalsozialistischer Führungsoffizier im Oberkommando des Heeres eingenommen hat.
Today, many of Himmler's chosen children, conceived as the future of an all-powerful master race, find it difficult to be confronted with the evidence of their birth.
I don't feel strong. I don't feel a Nazi. It's quite an unhappy feeling of a forlorn feeling of being lost.
But such very personal sorrows are far from the worst tragedy of the Lebensborn program. Himmler's determination to create a master race would lead to kidnapping and murder. By 1942, the war was claiming thousands of German lives every week. Himmler's plan to breed a new generation of pure Aryan babies in Lebensborn homes could not hope to fill the gap. He ordered a new policy to kidnap racially valuable children from occupied German territories.
Das, was in den Völkern an gutem Blut unserer Art da ist, das werden wir uns holen, indem wir denen, wenn notwendig, die Kinder rauben, bei uns großziehen.
In Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia and Poland, Himmler's troops systematically kidnapped children that conformed to the Nazi ideal.
So whenever they found children with blonde hair and blue eyes in other countries that the German forces occupied, then they took these children from the street and said, "You're gonna be a German child because you have the right blood, the Aryan blood."
If they seemed to be good or good enough, the children had to become Germans. They were forced to speak German. They were brought to Germany. The selected came to Lebensborn homes, and Lebensborn tried to bring them in German families as foster parents or adoptive parents.
Barbara Pakiakiewicz was 4 years old and living in Poland when she was stolen from her grandmother for the Lebensborn program.
Und in Łódź hat sie eine Aufforderung bekommen zum Jugendamt. Meine Oma hatte eine Aufforderung bekommen, dass sie mit mir zum Arzt gehen sollte, um eine Untersuchung. Aber es war eine rassische Untersuchung.
There were hundreds of Polish children in the center. SS doctors measured their heads with calipers and graded them against a detailed chart of racial characteristics. The most valuable category was pure Aryan, then Mischling or half-bloods, and at the bottom, Jewish.
Und man hat dem Kinder so Fotos gemacht und auch eine Nummer. Der Junge hatte eine Nummer und das sind meine Bilder. Hier habe ich auch eine Nummer bekommen. Und man hat die Rasse ausgesucht. Wenn das Kind voll rassisch, also wertvoll rassisch ist, dann sollte nach Deutschland geschickt werden.
Barbara was transported to the Bad Polzin Lebensborn home, the same home where Michael Sturm was growing up.
Das erinnere ich mich an einen Raum mit so runden Fenster, wo die Kinder immer auf der Fensterbank gesessen haben und aus Fenster geguckt, vielleicht haben gewartet auf jemand aus der Familie, weil alle waren doch weggenommen und möchten gerne zurück nach Hause. Die Kinder haben das so erlebt, dass sie alle Nassbetter waren. Und morgens bekamen die Kinder immer Schlagen dafür, dass sie ein Bett gemacht hat. Und wenn auch nur eine gemacht hat, da bekamen alle diese Strafe.
Stolen foreign children like Barbara were kept completely separate from the elite racially pure babies born in the Lebensborn home. But the Nazi plan was the same for all of them.
Die Kinder sollten auf Deutsch aufgezogen werden und sollten deutsche Kinder sein, sollten nachher die Jungs sollen kämpfen um Vaterland und die Mädchen sollen neues Leben bringen, neue Kinder. Schon rassisch wertvolle in diese Rasse, das sich Himmler ausgesucht hatte.
Older boys were sent to paramilitary Hitler youth academies, where they were taught Nazi ideology. Older girls were sent to schools run by the Bunde Deutsche Madel, the female equivalent of the Hitler Youth, and trained to become housewives and mothers. Stolen children who did not conform to the Nazi image of a perfect German faced an even bleaker fate. On Himmler's orders, they were shipped to forced education camps, brutalized, and used as slave labor.
Ob die anderen Völker in Wohlfahrt leben, ob sie verrecken vor Hunger, das interessiert mich nur so weit, als wir sie als Sklaven für unsere Kultur brauchen.
Younger children like Barbara were farmed out to carefully vetted foster families in Germany. But Lebensborn deliberately misled the foster parents. It told them that the children were the orphans of fallen German soldiers.
Dieses Blatt ist, also das Schreiben kommt von Lebensborn an Wilhelm Rossmann, meine Pflegeeltern. Hier steht Vermittlung eines deutschen Waisenkindes. Das Volksdeutsche Mädchen, es handelt sich um ein deutschständiges Kind, das auf Anordnung des Reichsführer SS in einer deutschen Familie erzogen werden soll.
Lebensborn systematically destroyed all record of the children's origins. As a result, Barbara grew up believing she was German.
Ich konnte doch kein Polnisch. Auf Deutsch. Ich war immer noch lange Zeit Bärbel Rossmann.
As the war drew to its end and the Thousand-Year Reich was dismantled, Himmler ordered Lebensborn homes to destroy their files. Some records survived. They suggest that more than 8,000 babies were born in the homes. But the number of children kidnapped from the occupied countries for the Lebensborn program could be as high as 500,000. Those surviving records are kept at the International Tracing Service archive in Bad Arolsen. Somewhere in these mountains of files are clues to the origins of the thousands of Lebensborn children.
It was the job of the International Tracing Service at the end of the war to find out what was the origin of these children. Where were they born? What was their real name? Were there any parents, any relatives?
Until 2008, public access to these archives was severely restricted. Today, the staff regularly assist victims of the Lebensborn program. But tracking down their origins is a difficult and harrowing task.
We can often trace which Lebensborn homes they have been to. We can trace whether they've come from Poland or Slovenia. But to find a name and a family is not easy. It has affected them a lot. It has affected their whole life. The idea was you breed children that are strong. And if you want them to become strong, meant you don't care about them. They are not supposed to cry. They are not supposed to ask for anything. They grow up like soldiers and become strong soldiers. That was the idea of the Nazis. But nature doesn't work that way. So that meant that these children who grow up in Lebensborn homes, they always feel lost.
But deep in these archives, Dr. Dorothy Schmitz-Körster has also found documents which reveal even worse fate for some Lebensborn children.
I found a file concerning a boy, Jürgen Weise. He was born in the Lebensborn home Bad Polsin, called Heim-Pommern, in June 41. And his mother wasn't married, and she left the home, and the child stayed in the home. And the doctor of the home noticed that there's something wrong with the boy, and he suffered from cramps, and there was something with his eyes, and he didn't develop as he should do. And the doctor informed the mother that he wanted to bring the child over to a mental clinic near Berlin.
This is the hospital at Brandenburg, where Jürgen Weise and other disabled Lebensborn children were sent. For more than 4 years during the war, it housed a children's psychiatric unit. But behind this compassionate name was a sinister secret.
Kinderfachabteilung in German. It was a section where children suffering from mental diseases or handicapped children were killed. And the doctor from the Lebensborn home made the suggestion to bring the child over to this Kinderfachabteilung. Here in the documents is written, Lebensborn is not interested in children like that. They only want to have children, healthy children, strong children, children that develop normal.
It took just over a week for the clinic to fulfill Lebensborn's instructions.
We have the postcard where Lebensborn is informed from the clinic that Jürgen Weise now The boy, Jürgen Weise, born in June 41, suffering from mental disease, died at the 23rd of February 42. He was 8 months old. And on the front we see a stamp with the face of Adolf Hitler. They get what they want. He died. Yeah.
Three weeks after the surrender of Germany in May 1945, Heinrich Himmler, architect of the Nazis' racial purity and Lebensborn programs, committed suicide. The Lebensborn program died with him, but its effects would continue to haunt its victims until today. Heinrich Himmler's plan to create a generation of racially pure Aryan children who would secure the future of the Thousand-Year Reich died in the flames and the rubble of the Nazis' defeat. But the effect of his Lebensborn program lasted long after the war's end. In Lemgo, a small town in northwest Germany, Barbara Pakiakiewicz, then called Barbel Rossmann, was living with her foster parents.
Ich glaube nicht, dass sie Nazis waren. Also ich weiß davon nichts. Er hat mich gut behandelt, haben mich und als eigenes Kind angenommen. Aber es war ein bisschen unruhig zu Hause und wenn ich ankam, zum Beispiel ins Zimmer reinkam, da hat man nicht mehr gesprochen. Und weil ich immer gedacht habe, warum gerade ich?
Unknown to her, 500 miles away in Poland, Barbara's grandmother had never given up hope of finding her stolen child.
Nach dem Krieg, da haben sich Leute gesucht und hatte zum polnischen Roten Kreuz geschrieben, dass mich die Deutschen weggenommen haben und sie sucht mich, sie wollte mich suchen.
When she was located by the Red Cross, Barbara found herself abruptly plucked from the only family she could remember. At the age of 10, she was transported back to Poland.
Ja, Polen, das hat mir nichts gesagt. Ich wusste doch gar nicht, dass ich eine Großmutter habe. Die Reise dauerte schrecklich lange. Der Zug manchmal tagelang gehalten irgendwie an einer Seite. Und dann auf einmal höre ich Polen, Polen und alle haben sich gefreut und naja, und ich wusste nicht, ob ich mich freuen kann oder was. Für mich war das nicht. Also die Leute, die vielleicht zurück nach Hause kamen, haben sich gefreut, endlich wieder in Polen. Aber ich als Kind, also Freude hat mir das nicht gemacht.
In the ruins of post-war Poland, Barbara felt completely lost. Taunted at school because she could speak only German, in a country with every reason to hate Germany.
Und ich habe auch gesagt, ja, ich bin Barbel Rossmann, ich habe meine Eltern in Lemgo und naja, hier bin ich so, aber ich bin Deutsch.
For more than 70 years, the Lebensborn program has haunted its innocent victims.
Bei der Recherche über das Leben meines Vaters habe ich manchmal vor dem Bildschirm gesessen, eine Familie gefragt, ob ich nicht aufhören soll und ob das gut ist, ob ich das alles wissen muss. Ich sage da mal für mich, ich habe das erst in den letzten 4 Jahren erfahren zu haben und habe auf der anderen Seite auch das große Glück, dass ich eine Familie habe, die letztendlich da auch eine gewisse Stütze sind, um zu sagen, pass auf, du warst ein Baby, du konntest nichts dafür.
Today, Michael Sturm and Barbara Pakiakiewicz, one born into the heart of the Nazi master race program, the other kidnapped to strengthen it, are returning to the Lebensborn home at Bad Polzin. It was here that both their stories began.
Da ist eine Denktafel von dieser Zeit, da werde ich mal lesen.
Ja.
In diesem Haus, in den Jahren 1943, 45, waren Kinder von den Hitler aus polnischen Familien gebracht, weggenommen.
Ja.
Und die sollten germanisiert werden. Also das steht hier auf Polnisch.
Ja. Das ist also der Eingang sicherlich. Höchstens, wie man sie hier noch sieht.
On the first floor, Michael and Barbara find the room where Lebensborn tried to mold them into model Nazi children. Almost unchanged after 70 years, it invokes painful memories.
Politisch geschult wurden, bis hin doch anzunehmen ist, dass in diesem Raum auch die Taufen stattgefunden haben, die SS-Taufen, wo die Kinder dann also die Babys einen SS-Paten bekommen. Damit waren wir ja letztendlich, wie sich herausgestellt hat, auch Mittel der SS. Jedes Mal, wenn ich hierher komme, doch bedrückend, das zu sehen und nachzuvollziehen, hier hat deine Mutter mit dir gestanden. Hier hat deine Mutter dich vielleicht der SS übergeben, als Baby, als jemand, der sich nicht wehren konnte, als kleines Kind.
Aber als wir in das Zimmer kamen, noch hier unten, und die Fensterbank gesehen habe, also dann ist mir gleich so ein Gefühl, naja, da hast du gesessen, da hast du geweint und gewartet auf jemand.
Mhm.
Ja, und da kommt man doch rein und da haben wir immer gewartet, vielleicht kommt die Mama oder Papa oder bei
Familie.
mir sollte die Oma kommen, ja.
Und es kam keiner.
Es kam keiner und da haben wir immer so, naja, darüber haben wir nachher geweint, nicht?
Ja.
Also wir wollten nach Hause.
Mhm.
Ja.
Immer wieder die Frage steht,
Warum?
die ich der Mutter stellen würde, warum? Warum musste das so sein? Und warum hast du nicht darüber gesprochen?
Ja.
Das ist das, was ich also auch meiner Mutter im Nachhinein doch etwas vorwerfe, nicht? Dass sie dann...
The Nazi Lebensborn experiment was intended to create a master race of fearless and ruthless super-Aryans. But in a terrible and bitter irony, it has had the opposite effect, leaving a legacy of shame, guilt and heartbreak, which has lasted for 70 years.
Auf mein Leben war das eine große Schande, ja. Man fühlt sich immer etwas schlechter. Ich bin auch ein Mensch, der gerne allein sein will. Und ich kann mich auch nicht richtig schätzen. Über Lebensborn, viele Leute wissen überhaupt nicht. Also man hat darüber überhaupt nicht gesprochen. Man sollte es nicht vergessen. Ich sage immer, man sollte verzeihen, aber nicht vergessen, was geschehen war.
Exploring more of the Nazis' most shocking secrets as our season continues here on Channel 5. Catch the Nazi Killers brand new tomorrow at 9. Up next tonight, new season Person of Interest continues.